One day, Thomas was in the yard. Suddenly, he heard an engine whistling. Help! Help! A goods train came rushing through much too fast. The engine was James, and he was frightened. His brake blocks were on fire. They're pushing me, he panted. On, laughed the trucks. Still whistling, help, help! Poor James disappeared. James's driver and fireman were feeling him all over to see if he was hurt. Never mind, James, they said. It wasn't your fault. He rushed into a tunnel thinking how clever he was, but there was trouble ahead. Cinders and ashes, said Thomas. I'm stuck. And he was. He was too tired now to care where he went. I want to stop. I want to stop. I have stopped. Henry's driver and fireman had jumped clear before the crash, but Henry lay dazed and surprised. Through the station they thundered. Disaster lay ahead. Something sticky splashed all over James. He had run into 2 tar wagons and was black from smoke box to cab. He moved slowly forward to jam the table, but he couldn't stop himself and slithered into a ditch. Ooh, she hissed. Get me out! Get me out! Pumping the trucks fiercely, he jerked his driver off the footplate and followed them into the siding. Come back, yelled his driver. Fire and smoke, said Thomas. I am sunk. Those buffers don't look very safe to me. The last load poured down. Help! I'm choking, cried Thomas. Get me out! Percy was worried, but he couldn't help laughing. Thomas's smart blue paint was covered in coal dust from smoke box to bunker. Ha ha, chuckled Percy. You don't look really useful now, Thomas. You look really disgraceful. I'm not disgraceful, choked Thomas. Suddenly, Percy found that he couldn't stop. The buffers didn't stop him either. Oh, wailed Percy, help! The buffers were broken and Percy was wheel deep in coal. As Edward clanked by, they broke through the fence and ran across the line. A coupling was broken and some trucks were left behind. Go on, they yelled, and bumped Percy's driver and fireman off the footplate. Oh, said Percy, sliding past the board. Percy was frantic. That's enough. Percy was sunk, gave a great heave. Trucks jerked forward. Oh, they screamed. We can't, we won't. Some of their brakes snapped, and the gear jammed in the sleepers. He veered into a siding where a barber had set up shop. He was shaving a customer. Until one day, Donald had an accident. The rails were slippery. He couldn't stop in time. The Fat Controller was most annoyed. Go steady! The van's breaking! The van was in pieces. The station master was about to have breakfast. Horrors! Cried Thomas and shut his eyes. The house rocked. Broken glass tinkled. Plaster was everywhere. Thomas had collected a bush on his travels. Frantically trying to grip the rails, Percy slid into the yard. Peep, peep! Look out! The brake van was in smithereens. Percy's driver and fireman had jumped clear, but Percy was stranded. Suddenly, Edward's wheels slipped fiercely. With a shrieking crack, something broke. The crew inspected the damage. Repairs took some time. "One of your crank pins broke, Edward," said his driver. "We've taken your side rods off. Now you're like an old-fashioned engine." But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the car to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. Then came trouble. A crate of treacle was upset all over Percy. I mustn't be late, he thought. The Fat Controller is relying on me. Whistling bravely, Thomas tried to move, but he couldn't. There was worse to come. Poor Thomas was snowed under.
But the porters didn't hear him either. Boxes and bags burst everywhere. "Oh!" groaned Percy. Sticky streams of jam trickled down Percy's face. A top hat hung on his lamp iron. Worst of all, a pair of trousers coiled lovingly round his funnel as he battled against the rain. More trouble lay ahead. "Oh," hissed Percy. Gordon thought it wanted to push him off the bridge. "No, you don't," he said firmly. But the wind had other ideas. It curled around his boiler, crept under his loose dome, and lifted it off and away into the valley below. Gordon was most uncomfortable. But just ahead was a stretch where the hot sun had bent the rails on the track. "Careful, Thomas," called his driver, but it was too late. "That's done it," said his driver. Later, Diesel bumped the truck so hard that the loads went everywhere. Next day, he was shunting trucks full of china clay. He banged the trucks hard into the buffers, but the buffers weren't secure. The silly trucks were sunk. "Slow down," called Thomas's driver, and applied the brakes. Poor Thomas stood dazed and surprised in a muddy pond as a toad eyed him suspiciously. "Bust my buffers," muttered Thomas. The day started so well, too. The rails were now like a tightrope across the thundering water. "Stop! Stop!" cried Toby. His driver fought for control. They came nearer and nearer to the bridge. The driver braked hard. Toby stopped, still on the rails, but with his wheels treading the tightrope over the abyss. Then there was trouble. The beehive fell and broke open. The station cleared like magic. James heard a familiar buzzing. The bees were too cold to be cross, so they buzzed around the fireman hoping he'd mend their hive. But he didn't understand, nor did his driver. So the bees turned to James. His boiler was nice and warm. "Buzz off! Buzz off!" hissed James. One bee burnt his foot. "Ooh, ah, phew, phew." The bee thought James had burnt him on purpose. So it stung James right back on the nose. "Eee!" whistled James. At last, the trucks grew tired. "I'm winning," gasped Oliver. But it was too late. Oliver lay, bruised and bemused, bunkered down in the turntable well. He didn't see that the points had failed and that he had been diverted into a siding. "Look out, Percy!" shouted his driver and applied the brakes. But it was too late. The driver and the fireman had jumped clear, but squashed fruit squirted all over Percy. He rode roughly and often came off the rails. I warned him to be careful, but he took no notice. "Listen, Dookie, who worries about a few spills?" "We do here," I said, but Smudger just laughed. One moment, everything seemed safe, then suddenly... Falcon was derailed and hung dangerously over the edge. "He's bumped us!" screamed the coaches. "Let's pay him out!" They surged into Sir Handel and pushed him off the rails. Sir Handel was about to cause a great deal of trouble. "Told you," said Sir Handel. "Faster! Faster!" they yelled. "No, no!" wailed the empty trucks. "It's Peter Sam." But it was no use. "Hurrah! Hurrah!" roared the trucks. Peter Sam shut his eyes. Beep, beep. "Steady, boy," checked his driver, but it was too late. "Sleepers and ballast. I'm off." "There's something hanging from the roof," shouted his driver. Peter Sam came out of the tunnel, a different-looking engine. He no longer had his funnel. They lumbered along as the insults continued. Then there was trouble. "Ah!" cried Sir Handel. "That was your fault." "No, it wasn't. It was yours." He rolled proudly towards his coaches. Then it happened. Shaking and spluttering, the diesel stopped. He drank 3 buckets of water and was just about to drink another when Henry let off steam. "Oh!" cried the elephant. Water went all over Henry. Poor Henry. "Oh!" wailed Scruffy. "Oh! I'm coming apart!" And he did. Then Thomas made his mistake. "Just like this," he boasted. A painter was on the ladder above the line. Henry's smoke blew high into the air. The painter couldn't see. Both he and the paint pot fell all over Henry. Poor Henry. "Well, you're not a pretty picture," sneered the painter. "There's no sign of a tail lamp," he puffed. He whistled, but there was no reply. Meanwhile, Henry had noticed something too. "My train's getting heavier," he thought to himself. "I'm slowing down." Then there was trouble. No one was hurt, but a strong smell of fish hung in the air. "Help! Help! they wailed. But it was too late. Cried Bulstrode. I'm sinking! Serves you right, giggled the trucks. You were always barging in and moaning. He was in a hurry and being careless. He propped his bike against Percy's mail truck and rushed away. Stop! Cried Percy, but Tom was out of sight. There was worse to come. Percy's driver hadn't seen the bike and he started away. Oh no! Cried Percy. Now there'll be trouble. And there was. Percy's driver quickly stopped the train. Everyone came running to the scene. Tom Tipper's bicycle was in pieces. When Cranky heard that the big engines agreed with him, he grew bossier still. Come on, push those trucks closer to me. But Percy was too upset to concentrate and pushed the trucks too far. Poor Percy. Cranky and the big engines were trapped at the docks. We're sure to be safe in this shed, said Duck. But he was wrong. The engines had no idea that they were about to be put in great danger by an old tramp steamer. It was out of control and running aground straight into the sheds. Called the engines from inside the shed. I can't, called Cranky pathetically. Pah, said Percy. He's back to bugging us. Don't move, you're still attached to Cranky. But it was too late. When Toby arrived, he saw the lorry from the quarry again. It was loaded with rock. That lorry's in trouble, thought Toby. And he was. The driver was thrown clear. Rotten roads, he muttered. Then Butch, the breakdown vehicle, arrived. He was towing the lorry from the flour mill. What happened? Asked Toby's driver. He was overloaded with flour, came the reply, and he broke down. Then James whistled excitedly. They're bringing in the third lorry on a barge. What happened to that one? James asked. Stupid lorry was reversing and fell straight into the sea, said the tow truck man. But Caroline didn't like going fast. I'm hot. My engine will overheat. And it did. Told you so, said Caroline sadly. Bother, bother. George was enjoying rolling along the lane, but not the Fat Controller. Oil splashed everywhere. Worse was to follow. Help! Cried George. Something snapped. He veered out of control and the Fat Controller landed in a muddy ditch close to where Thomas was taking on water. Bother, bother. Next morning, as James was being repainted, Henry had an accident. That's nice, we don't need to stop, said Thomas happily. Yes, we do, called his driver, but it was too late. Suddenly, he saw a truck on the line ahead. Get out of my way! But the truck wouldn't move. Until Gordon forced it. By accident. Percy charged at the line of trucks, too fast and too hard. Oh no! gasped Percy. The trucks broke free, but ran out of control to the mines below. On, on! Faster, faster! The silly trucks yelled. Then there was trouble again. There's going to be an avalanche, wailed Percy. And he was right. Worse still, the track he was on began to crumble. Then he remembered something he had seen earlier. There's a canvas barrier by the track. That might save us. They were just in time. Percy was right. The canvas did indeed save them, but the miners didn't know that. Toby was halfway across the bridge when disaster struck. Help! Called Toby. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the trucks hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. Stop quarrelling, you two, or the only thing you'll have left to share is trouble. Silly, snapped Bill. Silly yourself, grumbled Ben. Come on, push harder, you silly diesel, shouted Ben. But the diesel couldn't push any harder. And then it happened. I'm overheating again. Oh, Pa! I'm going to be late for Henry at the docks. He won't like this. Please hurry up and... Thomas was rudely interrupted. When he could, it was too late. Meanwhile, James was enjoying himself. This is the life, he chortled. But he was heading for trouble. One of the fuel trucks was leaking. And suddenly it caught fire. Help! Cried James. They reached the siding and his driver gave the alarm. It's fuel and it's dangerous. Because they were watching Harold, they missed a signal and went onto the wrong line. Gordon was travelling to trouble. Ahead was a tunnel under repair. His driver reduced steam and braked hard. But it was too late. You're no good, Oliver. You're dangerous. We want Percy. Pa, Percy's far too busy to be bothered with the likes of you. And he bumped the trucks hard. Disaster lay ahead. The family were enjoying themselves so much that they forgot to watch where they were going. Botheration, said the Fat Controller. We're stuck. And they were. Suddenly, Toad found it all rather fun. But the fun was soon over. A crossing lay ahead and the gates were closed. Toad couldn't stop. Worse still, more danger lay ahead.
Men were working on a bridge, but they had been warned about the runaway toad and his trucks. They diverted him onto old sidings, straight into a muddy pool. Stopped at last. Peter Sam felt much better after his long drink, but the trucks were bored. Let's break away, they giggled. Their loads were heavy and the couplings old. One snapped. Faster, faster, shouted the trucks. A sign read, slow, steep bends and ravine ahead, but the silly trucks never saw it. Then it was too late. Peter Sam arrived at the scene of the disaster. His driver sighed. This was our fault, we didn't secure them properly. A long time ago, a little engine was returning home. It was a misty moonlit night. As the engine crossed the old iron bridge, he suddenly lost control and plunged over the side into the swamps below. He was never found again. But many a workman will tell you that when the moon is full, they have seen the little engine trying to get home, but he never reaches the other side. Meanwhile, Skarloey was making his way up to the quarry. Then he saw Boulder. Yikes! Boulder was catching up to them fast, but they veered into a siding. Yikes! Rather a smash than a squash, sighed his driver. Come on, Percy, this isn't time to have a rest. I'm stuck, moaned Percy, and my funnel's freezing up. Driver's sent for help. Ha, huffed Thomas. Later, Thomas had to help clear snow by a tunnel, but it was too deep and he got stuck. A long line of full trucks was about to be winched down the slope. They had just started their journey when some empty trucks became derailed. The winch groaned. Break it! Snap it! Shouted the trucks. And they did. On! Faster, faster! They giggled. The snowbank and buffers will stop them, said a workman. But he was wrong. The trucks plunged into the ravine. Skarloey and his driver heard the noise and looked up. Avalanche! They cried. When the snow plume cleared, there was no sign of Skarloey. He was buried deep inside the high drift blocking the ravine. The men had just cleared the snow away from him when Gordon puffed by with his machine. Hey, look out, there's snow about, laughed Gordon. He stopped by the tunnel and wheeshed loudly. Then it happened. Help! Cried Gordon. Help! Cried Percy. His driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. He went off the rails at Bulgy's Bridge. And dropped the pipes onto the tracks instead of the trucks. Whoops! said Cranky. And then, before he could even think of anything else... Bust my buffers! Cried Thomas. No! Shouted Isabella. But it was too late. Oh no! He cried. Oops. Jack spotted. Jack couldn't hold the bridge any longer. Are you all right, Jack? I think so. Thomas couldn't see there was a huge rock buried under the snow. Suddenly, his snow plough hit the rock. Bouncing buffers, exclaimed Thomas. My plough is broken. His driver tried to stop, but the broken plough hit the water tower. Cinders and ashes, exclaimed Thomas. Donald could see the cart. Stop! He cried. Donald's driver applied the brakes, but it was too late. Luckily, no one was hurt. Duck could see he was getting too close to the buffers. Look out! He shouted, but it was too late. Help! Suddenly, he saw something. Bouncing buffers! Cried Percy. Suddenly, another building at the old mine sank into the ground. What was that? Shouted his driver. Double bouncing buffers! Shrieked Percy. He was so scared he lurched forward and rammed the truck. Naughty gnomes! Cried Percy. He steamed away faster than before. Henry arrived to pick up coal. He bumped into the trucks and the trucks bumped into Percy. Percy was pushed onto the loading ramp. Help! Cried Percy. I'm not a truck! But no one heard him. Percy was hoisted up. Tipped over and brought back down again. We're out of hot air! Shouted a voice. Ah! Cried James. What's happening? Crash! Bang! Wallop went the balloon and landed right on top of James. The branch line couldn't take his weight and the rails buckled. Oh, help! Gordon cried as he slid off the tracks and into a field. No one was hurt, but poor Gordon felt very undignified. As Percy pushed them under the coal chute, they sang out. On, 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 they cried. Percy found himself under the chute, and coal dust flew everywhere. Oh, no, coughed Percy. I'm filthy. Harold, the helicopter, was at Callan Station picking up medical supplies. Hello, Percy, he called. And he took off, blowing cinders and ashes everywhere. When he approached the chocolate factory, his driver applied the brakes, but Percy's wheels just skidded on the oily rails. Oh no! Hooted Percy. Yuck! He groaned. Ooh, said Bill. Phew! No! Mavis cried. But it was too late. The chain pulling Duncan's trucks couldn't hold the weight. It suddenly snapped. Help! He yelled. He'll get the loudest and the longest whistle yet, he chortled to himself. And he blew so hard his whistle shot off like a mighty rocket and landed out of sight.